Before we begin, thank you very much to Bronson2944 for not joining the campaign, upgrading to a higher tier. Thank you very much. I don't normally shout that out, but it feels appropriate. You know, like new signees, yeah, you get a shout out, whatever you want. But I think I'm going to change it up to where, like, if you upgrade from a lower tier to a higher tier, then yeah, I think that deserves a shout out too. And if you go from a higher tier and downgrade to a lower tier, I will publicly shame you. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Not going to happen. If you have to downgrade, don't worry about it. Take care of yourselves before you take care of me. That's always been the rule. So, yeah, there's my quick shout out. So thank you very much for the support. It is Earthspark time again. Now, I've been kind of putting this one off because, well, a couple reasons. Number one, let's be fair, these videos don't do that well in the algorithm because Earthspark is a series not a lot of people give a chance to. But also, I will be completely honest. Season 2 has not been turning out as good as Season 1. There's been a lot of staff changes in between the seasons, and I think it shows. But I still ultimately do enjoy the series, and I have fun watching it. Which brings me to the point of, if you've come into this video just to yuck my yums and just be just like a jerk about it, please take your time and energy elsewhere. Not interested here. Not interested. We are here to promote, support a show that is on for Transformers right now that I think is good. If you do not think it is good, you are free to have a dissenting opinion. You are not free to be a jerk about it, though. So, for the people who are enjoying the show and want my thoughts, let us move on to the next episode of the series. We are talking about Fire and Ice, which is episode 5 of season 3. And it starts off with the Terrans and the Maltos finding what is called a hyper shuttle, which seems to be one of Ghost's basically like transport tubes. And where it goes, they don't know. So they hack into it, test it out, and it turns out to be in the Arctic, or at least very, very far north. It has taken them into a very, very cold climate where they're basically just having a snow day, playing on the ice, snowball fights, etc. You know, it's all good, well, fun and games. Meanwhile, we're going to sit on that for the rest of the episode, because barely anything happens on that side. It's mostly just an excuse to remove most of the Terrans from the plot. Twitch will be joining the plot later on, but first we should get to what that is. Prowl has joined up with the Autobots now, and he is now coming to the base. And it leads to pretty much what you would expect. Old comrades kind of getting reacquainted. RC is a hugger. Found that one out. But the big thing here is he immediately clashes with Megatron. He's still not ready to trust the guy who was the leader of the bad guys. You know what? I can understand that. But this is kind of where Prowl shows his, like, traditional Prowlness of being kind of a jerk. But it does work for his character. Like, he is the overly serious one, which, you know, this show does not have many of. Even Megatron has kind of mellowed out. So with that being said, Bumblebee comes in looking for blood. Looking for oil. Energon? He wants fluid from... No, wait, no, that doesn't work either. He wants a fight. Let's just say he wants a fight. Okay? We'll leave it at that. And this is very out of character, obviously. It's this hyper-aggressive Bumblebee. And then he starts coming in contact with people like Elita 1, who then starts coming into contact with other people, who start turning red. We've got a hate plague episode. It's fascinating to me, of all of the G1 storylines that seem to stick in writers' heads, it feels like the hate plague is one they like going back to, either in reference or to just straight up ape and do for their own series. So yeah, we have a contagion, which Megatron is the first one to realize. And this is where it gets fun. While this is going on, Twitch actually returns to the base to regain Robbie's backpack, which they need for camping out. And this is where things get really creepy. We get like really good like horror vibes to it. There's some genuinely kind of scary imagery going on. Like they've done a good job of like setting this up on like between the Arctic and now this like contagion thing going around. This we're starting to get vibes of The Thing, you know, like the John Carpenter movie, and it works. It works. It's like a little foray into horror, just a bit, and it works out. And then it leads to what you would expect: a chase sequence for Twitch to try and get away from everybody trying to kill her. And again, gets really creepy, just genuinely creepy vibes. It's very well done. On the other side of it, the only ones who have escaped the contagion have been Optimus, Megatron, and Prowl. And Prowl is just still grumbling about Megatron, because of course he is. But what we have here is Optimus and Megatron both trying to be the leader in the situation. Optimus wants to maintain quarantine. He's locked down the entire base, and he wants to maintain quarantine to contain it, so that, because if this gets to the outside world, this could cause absolute chaos and anarchy. Whereas Megatron actually wants to breach quarantine and leave to go get outside help. Because at this point, and really, that makes sense on both sides. On Optimus' side, yeah, like, prioritize protecting people on the outside. Right now, it's only a few that are, afflicted with this. If even more get out, and this gets to, anyone else on Earth that this could possibly affect, yeah, you're talking about some extreme situations. That said, no one currently knows about the contagion except these three, so these are the only ones who could go get help. If they get infected and start trying to kill each other as well, there's no one left to go get help from the outside. They are both making a very good point here. Ultimately, it is decided that Megatron is going to leave to try and get help. That said, Optimus is staying. Remember, this is Earthspark Optimus Prime, where he still feels a lot of guilt for his crew being trapped on Earth with no way home. So he really doesn't want to abandon them for any reason. Having every other Autobot in the entire base trying to murder him, including Grimlock, which is terrifying. He's probably not going to survive, but he's not going to leave them either. And there's this nod of respect between Optimus and Megatron, and like it's a really nice little moment, because they're both showing like their type of heroism in a situation where there is no good plan, there is no good way out, but they both need to try. It doesn't work. Bumblebee starts getting into a fight with Prowl. Prowl gets infected. Prowl infects Optimus. So we get what we never got when the Hate Plague took over in G1. Optimus Prime is now infected. That's where things get serious. This is also where the plots converge, because Twitch actually saves Megatron from infection by basically ramming a coolant truck into Optimus. And they actually notice that it affects the infection. Interesting. This leads to yet another chase sequence where Megatron and Twitch are just trying to get out of the hangar bay and start blasting every tanker they have in there, which is conveniently all coolant that starts blasting them and, weakening the infection. Enough for them to get through, get back to the hyper shuttle with a really tense sequence of, Optimus is on his way, in full murder mode, and Twitch is trying very hard to get access to the shuttle, because that's what we have hashtag for. I'm not cut out for this. So good tense moment. That's broken by the fact that Megatron did get touched. Now, there's a part I actually enjoy about this. There's something intriguing. Megatron knows rage, and he makes a point of it, that he has known hate for a long time. So he's actually much more capable of controlling himself in this state. He's still, aggressive up to 11, but he's able to keep a lot more of his rational mind than the Autobots did, which makes total sense when you think about it. So it's a good direction to take. It's a good twist on the format. Optimus makes it up the shuttle, which gives us the thing we've been waiting for this entire series, is Optimus versus Megatron. I feel like Earthspark has done a good job of doing the same thing that IDW 1.0 did when Megatron declared himself an Autobot, is waiting for that long game. You're just waiting for that moment where he goes, screw this, I am a bad guy. You know, and he turns on the Autobots, he rips off the ghost symbol, Decepticon symbol on, and just full out tries to just murder everybody again. You're just waiting for that moment where he goes evil. But they do a good job of making sure that it always rides that line, and you're not quite sure if that's ever going to happen. So this is the first way we've actually gotten to see these two throw down. And I'm going to be honest with you. It's a letdown. It's a much slower fight than I would have liked out of these two. And it's just not very eventful. Like I just feel like with both of them, like, rage-fueled, that this should have been a way more brutal and intense fight. And instead is just kind of like a slugfest between big guys. One of the big things that changed between Season 1 and Season 2 was the animation department. And I feel like Season 1 had really fantastically choreographed and designed fight sequences, where this is not. So it's not as interesting. I will give it that. It ends when the Terrans manage to break through the ice and dunk both of them into the freezing water, which I presume is salt water, because that would bring it even lower than freezing, which kills the plague. And then they use the AC units to do the same. I don't know how the AC units are as cold as the Arctic, but here you go. And that brings us to the wrap-up, which is Optimus and Megatron going back to that conflict they had in the hallway about who was actually right. And, you know, if we are going to work as partners, then, yeah, like, you actually need to, like, listen to each other a little bit better. And Optimus is quick to point out, like, you need to stop questioning every decision I make. And Megatron's like, no one questioned my decisions, and look what happened to me. Fair point, Megs. They shake hands. They tell each other they trust each other with their lives. They call each other brothers. It's very odd for someone who's watched them be enemies for 40 years to be buddy-buddy like this. In a fun way. Odd in a fun way. So the hate plague is cool to see again as an episode plot. And I do like that they've thrown in a weakness that makes sense. Because whether it was a spore or a microbe of some kind, a virus, it does make sense that the cold would kill it. Because most viruses and contagions don't survive extreme cold. Good on you. That one works for me. And it does give them an easy way of getting rid of it. Which doesn't require a matrix of leadership. But that does take us into the next episode. If I can pull up the episode title very quickly, because I forgot to write it down. We are up to The Truth Is Out There. And when you get X-Files with a name, you know we're going to be talking about aliens. And we know the aliens in this series equates to quintessons, which makes me very, very happy. Robbie is getting some time with Izzy. Which, okay, cool. I liked Izzy popping in. I liked the story beat for Robbie. Great to see. But that's just the setup to the plot. And it's an important setup, and we'll find out why later. Ominous, ominous. Prowl is actually investigating where the origin of the plague came from. I'm really happy they didn't just drop this, that they actually are investigating the origin. In G1, we knew the origin. You know, that was from, like, that's from, like, Earthlings kind of meddling in things in space, and it brought the spore back to Earth. In Beast Machines, where they did the hate plague, it was a far more akin to it was just Megatron creating a computer virus. We knew the origins. Here, not so much. Here we actually have, like, a mystery story, and good thing we have Prowl here to actually lead the mystery, and Twitch or Thrash rather providing the comical sidekick to his detective. And they start tracing it back. Of course, he's going to blame Megatron first. Of course he is. But the episode's format runs pretty much linear, as Thrash and Prowl kind of run through the investigation and the different points where like contact could have been made. So they've deduced that Bumblebee was already in rage mode before he came into contact with Megatron, dropping the line "beryllium baloney," by the way. So quick little G1 reference worked in. But they acknowledge that, yeah, he was infected before then. So what were you doing before then? Okay, well, I'm driving around town. There was this green car that was chasing me and came into contact with me. And then they chased down the green car. It's Schloeder, who's driving erratically because he spills his coffee. Turns out he noticed Bumblebee committing acts of road rage and it was only tailing him in order to see what else he was doing, and then got cut off. So he never came into contact. So Schloeder is basically just making a cameo in this one, just to remind us, oh hey, he's still around, which is fun. I like the character, so kind of nice to see him here and there. They trace it to Jawbreaker, who also is not guilty of anything. They trace it back to Alex. And we get to see Alex's office, which has some fun trinkets to point out. So yes, we have a very G1 blaster. We have a pink Bumblebee, a hot rod with a blue spoiler, sea spray in what would be his Decepticon colors of like this deep plum purple and green. And then up top, Double Dealer. Straight up Double Dealer. Remember this. We'll get back to it in a minute. Alex is fine too. Like, that one also leads to a dead end. Bumblebee was already raging before we got here. They take it back to the lab. They ponder over it. And then this hat comes into contact with Prowl and he starts raging again. Turns out the hat was infected. The hat that came from Izzy. Interesting that. Okay, let's not jump to conclusions yet. Let's just kind of pretend like maybe they're just using Robbie's new girlfriend to get to the Autobots. So we actually do need to like properly investigate her, right? Well, as it turns out, we actually have a way of tracking this virus to its source now. Thanks to, by the way, let's get to this. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, because there is a fight sequence between Thrash, Nightshade, and Prowl, which the Terrans constantly come into contact with Prowl. Thrash is basically like either body checking him or getting in the way so he doesn't infect Bumblebee with his attacks. And then Nightshade comes in and gets in a few shots of their own as well. The problem in all this is we never established that the Terrans were immune to the plague. Like, that wasn't a thing in the previous episode, and they didn't explain it now. We just kind of, like, see it happening and go, oh! And no one's even mentioning the fact that the Terrans are immune. Would have been a nice little story point. Or it might have been, like, a cool little tense moment to go find out of, like, Thrash knows this is dangerous, but he's going to protect Bumblebee first, so he takes the first shot, and then goes like, wait, I'm okay. I still feel happy. Nope. So, a little bit of a plot hole there. Nightshade has come equipped with two things. Number one is a new version of their floating gizmo, which now comes with coolant spray to cut off any infection. Their other creation is a tracker that can take the whatever the virus is made from and track it back to its source, kind of like an energy detector. This cuts to a scene where we get to see a Quintesson soldier talking to an actual Quintesson. Five-faced Quintesson. Makes me happy. So, okay, yeah, it's a Quintesson plot. Great to see. We actually did have indication that it's a Quintesson plot, I believe. I think some computer screens gave us that one. So, yeah, like, Quintessons are involved. Specifically, a Quintesson shapeshifter, who is turning into random animals in the forest to try to escape capture, then turning into random cars, etc. And like basically just doing whatever they can to try and evade Prowl. Which, cool scene. Chase scenes with shapeshifters are always kind of a cool thing to see, because They get to be very creative. You know, it's a very cool thing. I like those. But it does lead downtown to where Izzy is conveniently just there. Izzy, who, due to an injury, is dripping green. Same spot where the Quintesson got injured by just in case you're curious, just by coincidence. Jig is up. Izzy's been a Quintesson the whole time. The fun part about this is there is foreshadowing. There's foreshadowing in both episodes, by the way. I didn't mention it, but in the first episode, Fire and Ice, there is actually a scene where she is calling Robbie, and when Robbie says he's got like Transformer stuff to do, she's very curious and immediately starts to ask if she can find out what it is. In the opening scene, she's asking how the Autobots are doing after their experience with the hate plague. So she was told at least that. Yeah. I'm a little bit torn about whether or not I like this or not. Like, yeah, it makes sense for Quintessons. But at the same time, like, I liked the Robbie and Izzy thing. I wish that had actually continued. Robbie gets to go through a lot of heartbreak, a lot of anger, and we get to go through a small fight scene with a shapeshifter, which frankly I wish went a little bit longer. The fight scene is a little bit tame and ends with the capture of the Quintesson while Robbie is still feeling the betrayal. And that's going to continue through the next episode. But it does bring that whole Izzy plot to a conclusion. Quintesson ends up down in the detention cells that once held the Decepticons. And we're left to ponder exactly what the Quintessons are going to do next. And yeah, it's an interesting episode just because they're doing more of a detective story than anything. That's a little bit different for Transformers, and I do appreciate that. Where's Nightbeat when you need him? But the episode overall is fun. We further the Quintesson plot. We get a little bit more of like an interesting story, like heartbreak. Not something Transformer stories tell very often. So I'm not totally against that. And that said, yeah, it's a fine set of episodes. I do think the first one is stronger. Like episode 2, The Truth Is Out There. I do like how that is set up. And like foreshadowing, like showing a toy of Double Dealer during this episode is a brilliant little trick that the animators added in. I love that. And then the first episode, Fire and Ice, I do think is stronger. I do like the horror elements, the premise. Obviously, I like the new twist on the hate plague, which actually takes a little bit from Beast Machines, by the way. The hate plague actually expands on the existing feelings rather than just making them angry, which does mean there is some underlying tension between Optimus and Megatron, and that had to get hashed out. It all kind of plays into each other very well, and it tells a deeper story even if they're not going to really like delve into it. But overall, nice pair of episodes, like a nice little mini block to deal with the hate plague story until we go into the next 2 episodes, which are the season finale, and we get into proper Quintesson hijinks. So there is the late episode 5 and 6 of season 3. As always, thank you very much for watching. If you do watch these episodes, I do appreciate them, because I do know they're not everyone's favorites, but I still like talking about this show, so we're going to keep doing it. We got one more to go, and then we get to wait for, I presume, a season 4. So, that is all from me. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time.
Analysis complete. Adapting translators to local language.
Are you out there?